Hey, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we'll be talking about overcoming conventional wisdom as it relates to your finances. A very important discussion, something we should all be aware of, are preconceived notions that guide our financial decisions. Ideas that we rarely stop to question because the belief in them are so widespread, so repeated, and so normal that challenging them almost feels somewhat wrong. But history shows us a powerful lesson. Just because everyone believes in something doesn't necessarily mean it's true. At one time, people actually believed that the earth was flat. Even now, still, interestingly enough, many people believe that the earth is flat. But doctors also used to believe that bloodletting was something that cured diseases. And as we know nowadays, it's very important that you keep your blood. It's even understood that the life of a person's in their blood. And also, it was common to drink kerosene based tonics as some form of medicine that was supposed to provide healing. We look back now and think, how could people have believed those things? However, that's also a fair question to ask about some of our financial beliefs that we hold today. So, today, during our discussion, we're going to challenge some of those beliefs because, as we learned with the evolution of medical science and the evolution of the understanding of the world, things that we've been taught about money may be incorrect and could be holding us back financially. I know some of the things that I was taught growing up. You're always told, hey, get a credit card, charge things on it, get a good credit score, but not really understanding the difference between what's a good debt, bad debt, what's an asset versus what's a liability, and things of that sort. So all of those things should come into play when you're thinking about debt. But as likely with you, that's something that I wasn't taught. Conventional wisdom seems safe, and mostly because it's accepted. It's things that most people do. Like here, we're told get a good job, buy a house as soon as you can, max out your 401k at all costs, go to college no matter the cost. These statements aren't wrong, but they're incomplete. Doing these things that pertain to conventional wisdom, arguably they're based on assumptions that may not match, your lifestyle, your goals, your timeline, opportunities that you're looking to provide for yourself later on in life, or the economic world that we actually live in. Conventional wisdom is comfortable, but it's not really the same as progress. Just because you're hitting those goals of buying a home, maxing out your 401k, going to college. Yes, it's comfortable because you're falling within the norm, but is it really aligning to your goals? What financial advice have you grown up hearing that you find to now be incorrect? Could be something like, hey, everyone has a car loan, or you have to buy a new car. You can't buy used because you're going to have more issues or challenges with it, right? I mean, we know that vehicles depreciate almost 50% within 5 years. We also know that buying a used car, 2 to 3 years old, take less of a depreciation hit. And oh, by the way, new cars and old cars need repairs, need maintenance. They break down. So either way, it's something that is not an asset. It's depreciating. So let's talk about some of the myths we want to bring up in today's discussion as pertains to conventional wisdom. So myth one is homeownership is always the best investment. So we've been taught that the first sign of financial security is buying a home. You get out of school, you get that first job. Now it's time for you to buy a home. And yes, homeownership can provide a level of stability. However, here's the data on it. Most families have 50% of their net worth in their home equity, and that's the average families. And your home does not provide monthly income. Matter of fact, there's a lot of upkeep and maintenance related costs. So, yes, it's likely appreciating, but it's not providing income, and there are many costs associated with it. However, when you look at the top 1% of Americans, only 13% of their net worth is in the equity of their primary residence. And the rest of their net worth they prioritize in cash flowing assets that produce income. So the question really isn't, is home ownership a good thing? Right? The real question that you should ask yourself is, what are you sacrificing to have so much of your net worth tied up in home equity? I mean, you would think having a high level of your net worth in home equity keeps your money locked away, inaccessible, not helping you, move closer to financial freedom, which I define as having enough cash flowing assets such that you are no longer having to exchange your time for income, but you are free to use your time how you deem necessary. The next myth I'd like to talk about is max out your 401k and then you'll be secure. Most of us were told, hey, put as much money in your 401k. That's the main thing you need to do if you want to retire one day. But here's the problem: 401k is restricted, it's illiquid, it's taxed when it's accessed. If you're looking at the traditional 401k, not a 401k Roth, it's penalized if accessed early. You're going to pay your regular taxes on it. And then on top of that, there's a 10% penalty. And everything associated with that 401k is controlled by rules that you have no ability to set. Another big one is from the legacy perspective, passing on a traditional 401k to an heir results in them having to make required minimum distributions over a 10-year period. So if you have a load of money in your 401k that you're giving to your heirs, you're going to give them a tax problem for a 10-year period of time until they fully draw down your 401k account that was transferred to them. So yes, that money will be a blessing, but it'll be a bigger blessing to the government, which is going to tax a large portion of it depending on how high of a tax bracket you push that family member into. So at the end of the day, within the 401k, yes, great construct, but you have to use it strategically and understand other things that you can potentially pursue that would be a better store of finances for you. So if you follow the myth of making sure that you're always maxing out your 401k, what ends up happening? You accumulate a large amount of wealth on paper. However, you still need to maintain your current 9 to 5 job to cover your lifestyle, since that 401k nest egg is not providing immediate cash flow. And this is really an example of how many people become asset rich and cash poor. And you're really not at that point financially free, but financially committed to that 401k. So you did everything right, but you still lack options. You lack options because of following conventional wisdom, maxing out your 401k. Another myth of college debt always pays off. So, yes, higher education can be valuable. I have a bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering, a master's of science in mechanical engineering, and a master of science in national security and resource strategy. So, yes, I understand the value of education, but also I do understand it's not automatically the best investment for you. How, you may ask? I'll tell you, in the United States, there's $1.7 trillion in student loan debt, and wages have not grown at the same pace. A lot of folks who are carrying this student loan debt, you're one of them. You're pretty cash strapped, right? You're potentially concerned about having to make that payment every month because it's making it hard to make ends meet. Meanwhile, other paths that folks have taken, which doesn't include going to college, such as skilled trades, certifications, being an entrepreneur, online businesses have created paths to income and, in many cases, paths to wealth that did not come with a load of student loan debt. So the key message is not do not go to college. However, the message I am trying to get across to you is don't go into college debt assuming that the financial return on investment is guaranteed. So we went through several myths today as it pertains to conventional wisdom, and if these myths are so questionable, why do we follow them? Why do we adhere to them? And really, the answer could be from a behavioral point of view. And we prefer familiarity, predictability, and safety. Safety from the vantage point of following the herd mentality. Hey, everyone else is doing it, so this must be the right way. I mean, there's arguably comfort in doing what everyone else is doing at times. However, as the Bible tells us in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, do not be conformed to the patterns of the world, but be transformed through the renewing of your mind. Financial change begins with mental change, begins with changing your mindset, changing your perspective, really questioning some of these myths and developing a path that aligns to your goals, your lifestyle, your ambitions. So ask yourself the question, where have I conformed without questioning? So contrarian thinking is not about being reckless, it's about seeing the opportunity that others miss. For example, Warren Buffett is famously quoted as saying, be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. Examples of favorable contrarian thinking is buying assets when the market's down, starting a business while others are clinging to job security, investing in rental properties when everyone else is focused solely on home ownership, building various income streams instead of deferring living your life until retirement. So these examples of contrarian thinking is really how generational wealth is built, not by following the herd, but by thinking independently. Conventional wisdom, it's familiar, it feels safe. However, it often leads to stagnation, deferred dreams, and delaying living life. And the true purpose of wealth is not to retire at age 65. And we'll talk about this in another video. I'm anti retirement. However, the purpose of wealth is about freedom, it's about impact. Impact not only within your generation, but arguably 100 years beyond. And you don't need to reject everything you've been taught. You just need to be open minded and evaluate it for yourself. Take one step today. Challenge one financial belief that no longer serves your calling. Because freedom starts in the mind, and then it moves to your money, and then it transforms your life. So if this video resonated with you, please like the video, share it with someone that you believe will add value to, and subscribe to the channel for additional content I'm sure it's going to add value to you and many others. And all this information can be found in Chapter 9 of my book, Breaking Free from the 401k Trap. However, if you don't want to purchase the book, all the information will be provided on this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. God bless.